There comes a point in life when people stop asking about your films and start asking about your memories. Instead of asking about a scene or a director, they'd ask about the people. The ones I remembered, the ones I missed, the ones who mattered.
Robert Mitchum was never just another Hollywood star. His talent, confidence, and unforgettable personality won the admiration of co-stars and millions of fans worldwide. Despite the controversies surrounding him, he remained surrounded by people who respected and loved him. At 80, Mitchum revealed the 5 people who meant the most to him. What made them so special, and why did they earn a place among those he cherished most? 5. Dorothy Mitchum, the woman who stood by Robert Mitchum. Dorothy Mitchum was the one constant in his life, the only true anchor, and the greatest love he would ever know. The answer cannot be explained by ordinary ideas of marriage, loyalty, or romance. It begins with Dorothy Spence, the remarkable woman who transformed patience into an extraordinary expression of love and became the only person who truly understood the deepest corners of a legendary man's heart. To understand why Dorothy held such an unshakable place in Robert Mitchum's life, we have to return to the years before Hollywood ever discovered his name. Their story began when Robert was just 16 years old, and Dorothy was only 14, during the difficult years of the Great Depression in Delaware. Back then, Robert Mitchum was far from the handsome movie star admired by millions around the world. He was a troubled teenage drifter who rode freight trains without buying a ticket, had little more than the clothes on his back, and carried the emotional scars of a painful childhood. But Dorothy saw something in him that everyone else overlooked. She saw the loneliness of a young boy who had grown up without the love and stability every child deserves. She recognized a rare talent hidden beneath the struggles, pain, and uncertainty that life had placed in his path. She fell deeply in love with that wild young man, loving him with complete honesty, kindness, and unwavering faith. At a time when the greatest treasure they shared was nothing more than the hope that tomorrow might be better than today. Their relationship had been built during those difficult years, long before fame, fortune, and success ever entered Robert Mitchum's life. When Hollywood finally embraced him in the 1940s, success arrived like a powerful storm, bringing with it every temptation, every distraction, and every excess that fame could possibly offer. Through every triumph and every mistake, Dorothy remained the one person who kept him connected to the life he had known before the spotlight. But being married to Hollywood's original bad boy was never a glamorous privilege. It was an enormous burden that would have driven away almost anyone who did not possess a heart as patient, compassionate, and endlessly forgiving as hers. In 1948, Mitchum's rapidly rising career came crashing to a halt when he was arrested during a police raid for possessing and using. He was sentenced to 2 months in prison. At the time, a scandal of that size was considered the end of an actor's career. Overnight, Hollywood turned its back on him. Movie studios searched for ways to cancel their contracts with him, while newspapers and magazines treated him as though he could never redeem himself. As public criticism grew louder with every passing day, Dorothy responded in a way that left everyone stunned. She did not hide from the cameras, nor did she allow herself to break down in front of reporters. Instead, she quietly took the hands of their 2 young children, walked through the crowd of waiting journalists, and entered the prison to visit the man she loved. Without speaking a single word of blame, anger, or disappointment, she reached through the prison bars and gently held Mitchum's trembling hands. She looked into his eyes with a calm, steady gaze that expressed far more than words ever could. "No matter if the entire world turns its back on you, I never will." In that simple moment, her quiet courage and remarkable ability to forgive restored the dignity of a proud man whose spirit had been shattered by shame and regret. But prison was only one of the many storms their marriage would have to survive. Robert Mitchum's life became surrounded by endless rumors of affairs, glamorous co-stars, late-night parties, and the countless temptations that came with being one of Hollywood's biggest stars. Dorothy knew everything. She knew every rumor, every whisper, and every painful detail. Yet instead of creating public scandals or seeking revenge through a bitter divorce, She chose patience, understanding, and quiet strength. Her silence was never the silence of weakness. It was the strength of a woman who understood her husband's heart better than anyone else ever could. She knew Robert Mitchum was like a wild hawk that longed to fly into storms, chase danger, and live without limits. But she also knew that whenever those wings became tired and wounded by the heavy cost of fame, there was only one place where he truly wanted to return: the peaceful home she had spent her entire life protecting. She gave him complete freedom, and in return, she received the deepest loyalty he was capable of giving. During the summer of 1997, at the age of 80, Robert Mitchum sat quietly in an armchair on his ranch as lung cancer slowly drained away his strength. Speaking about the woman who had stood beside him for nearly 6 decades, his voice became softer than anyone had ever heard before. The confidence and defiance that had defined him for so many years quietly faded away, leaving behind nothing but gratitude, humility, and deep emotion. I put her through hell. I made her endure every hardship that a flawed man could bring into another person's life. Yet she never once let go of my hand. Dorothy wasn't just my wife. She was the air that kept me breathing, the only anchor that stopped a crazy man, a wanderer like me, from disappearing completely. If there is another life after this one, I would still choose to be that same drifter all over again, just so she could save me one more time. Robert Mitchum's wife was undoubtedly one of the greatest loves of his life. But she wasn't the only person who meant the world to him. So who else earned a place on this list? Let's find out. 4. Jane Russell, the friend who understood Robert Mitchum. Then there was Jane Russell, his unforgettable co-star, and one of the closest friends he would ever have. Their friendship became one of the strongest and most respected relationships in all of classic Hollywood. Jane Russell's place in Robert Mitchum's life proved that the deepest connection between a man and a woman is not always built on romance or physical attraction. Sometimes it grows from mutual respect, complete trust, and the rare understanding shared by two strong, independent people who found something real in the middle of Hollywood's artificial world. During the 1950s, movie audiences packed theaters to watch the unforgettable chemistry between Robert Mitchum and Jane Russell in His Kind of Woman in 1951 and Macau in 1952. Mitchum's rugged confidence and his famous sleepy-eyed look, combined with Russell's stunning beauty, commanding presence, natural charm, and quick, razor-sharp wit, created unforgettable moments every time they appeared together on screen. Their connection looked so natural and believable that gossip columnists became completely fascinated by them. Newspapers were ready to pay huge amounts of money to any photographer who could capture them holding hands, sharing a secret kiss, or finding even the smallest piece of evidence that suggested a romantic relationship. But both Hollywood and the public had the story completely wrong. There was never a romantic relationship between Robert Mitchum and Jane Russell. Instead of giving in to temptation or the constant expectations of the entertainment industry, they created something far more unusual: a deep and lasting friendship. Their bond became so close that Mitchum warmly referred to Jane simply as "my buddy." Robert Mitchum was well known for disliking fake behavior, glamorous appearances, and the carefully created public image that surrounded many Hollywood stars. Yet he deeply admired Jane Russell because she was refreshingly honest, fearless, and completely comfortable being herself. She never depended on her beauty to influence people or earn their respect. She was practical, confident, experienced, and had a dry, razor-sharp sense of humor that perfectly matched Mitchum's own personality. Whenever they worked together, they were doing much more than simply acting out scenes. They constantly challenged each other, made one another laugh, and inspired each other to give their very best performances. Every scene they shared felt completely natural, because the friendship between them was just as real off the screen as it was on it. Away from the cameras, they remained lifelong friends. Mitchum and Russell were often seen sitting together in quiet bars, talking for hours late into the night while enjoying a few drinks together. Yet their conversations were rarely about romance. Instead, they criticized Hollywood's demanding studio system, laughed about the industry's endless obsession with awards, fame, and social status, and openly shared the enormous pressure that came with being internationally famous. In an industry filled with carefully crafted images, fake smiles, and shallow friendships, Jane Russell became one of the very few women Robert Mitchum truly considered a trusted companion. She was someone he trusted with his deepest thoughts, knowing without any doubt that she would never betray his confidence. Jane Russell was also one of the very few people who truly understood the man hidden behind Robert Mitchum's legendary image. Looking back on their friendship years later, she gave one of the most thoughtful descriptions anyone had ever shared about him. Bob was like a big kid who always tried to look tough and rebellious because that was his way of protecting himself. But underneath all of that, he had an incredibly gentle and sensitive soul. Most people only noticed the rough image, the scandals, and the fistfights. I saw a poet, a hopeless romantic, hidden inside the body of a rugged movie star. But was that really the end of the list? Or were there more people who held a special place in Robert Mitchum's heart? Stay with us as we uncover the next name. 3. John Wayne, The Bond. Robert Mitchum never forgot. People enter our lives, and eventually, some of them leave. Friendships can appear and disappear depending on success, fame, and circumstances. In Hollywood, relationships often changed with the direction of a person's career. When someone was successful, everyone wanted to be close to them. When things became difficult, many people quietly disappeared. But Duke was never that kind of person. If he considered you a true friend, then you remained his friend. It did not matter whether your career was reaching incredible heights or whether you were facing the hardest moments of your life. Fame, success, and status never determined the value he placed on people. I remember one evening, after a long and exhausting day of filming, a small group of us stayed behind, sitting together and talking long after the rest of the crew had already left. Slowly, the conversation moved away from movies and moved toward more personal things: family, memories, life, and the reality of growing older. What surprised me most was that Duke spent most of that evening listening rather than talking. That was not what people expected from him. Many imagined John Wayne as the loudest person in the room, the man who naturally commanded attention wherever he went. But the truth was much more interesting. Duke knew how to listen, and that is a quality many people never truly learn. Years later, whenever I found myself thinking about the people I genuinely enjoyed having around me, that quiet evening always returned to my mind. It was not a glamorous Hollywood premiere. It was not a famous scene captured by cameras. It was not a moment surrounded by thousands of people celebrating his success. It was simply a peaceful evening with a friend who happened to be one of the biggest stars in the entire world. That is the John Wayne I remember most clearly. Not just the actor, not just the legend, but the man behind the image. And that is why he will always have a place on this list. Now, let's uncover another person Robert Mitchum revealed he truly loved. 2. Deborah Kerr, the actress Robert never forgot. When I think about Deborah Kerr, the first thing that comes into my mind is not a movie set, a famous performance, or a camera pointed in her direction. It is her smile, not the carefully practiced smile actors often give for photographs or public appearances. I mean, the real smile, the one that made people feel comfortable, welcomed, and valued the moment they experienced it. Throughout my career, I had the privilege of working with many talented and remarkable people. But Deborah possessed something that could never be learned, practiced, or created for an audience. She had genuine kindness. It followed her everywhere. In an industry filled with enormous personalities, powerful egos, and people constantly trying to protect their image, Deborah somehow remained completely herself. She never allowed fame to change the person she was at her core. That may sound like a simple thing, but in Hollywood, it was incredibly rare. Hollywood has a unique way of transforming people. Fame can change how someone sees themselves. It can change how they treat others. It can make people become distant, guarded, or completely different from who they once were. But Deborah never seemed interested in becoming anyone other than herself. She was comfortable with exactly who she was. I remember spending long days working beside her and noticing the way she treated everyone around her.
Fame changes people. Deborah never seemed interested in becoming anyone other than who she already was. I remember spending long days working together and noticing how she treated everyone around her.
It did not matter whether someone was the leading actor, a director, a crew member, or a production assistant. Deborah gave everyone the same level of respect and attention. Those small gestures may seem insignificant, but they reveal the true character of a person. A movie set can be a difficult environment. Long hours create exhaustion. Pressure builds. People become frustrated. Small problems can quickly become bigger ones. But one genuinely kind person can completely transform the atmosphere of an entire day. That was one of the things I admired most about Deborah. She never carried the weight of her own reputation. Everyone knew she was admired. Everyone knew she was one of the finest actresses of her generation. Yet, she never entered a room expecting people to treat her differently. She was professional without making people feel uncomfortable. She was elegant without creating distance. She carried herself with grace, but she always made others feel important. During filming, there were many moments between takes when we would simply talk about ordinary things, family, travel, books, and life outside the world of movies. Those conversations never felt forced or artificial. They felt real. But the story doesn't end here. There's still one more person who stood above the rest and held a truly special place in Robert Mitchum's life. Let's find out who. 1. Humphrey Bogart, a man Robert Mitchum truly admired. Long before I ever met Humphrey Bogart, I already knew who he was. Everyone did. You could not grow up watching movies without knowing Bogart. He had a presence that was impossible to ignore. The kind of presence that made people stop and pay attention the moment he appeared on screen. When he walked into a scene, he looked like a man who had already lived through experiences most people could never imagine. But the most fascinating discovery came when I finally got to know the person behind the legend. The real Humphrey Bogart was even more interesting than the character people believed they knew. Many people described Bogey as tough, and he certainly had that side. But what I remember most about him was his honesty. He had no interest in pretending to be someone he was not. And in Hollywood, that was something rare. Many people spent their entire careers carefully creating an image for the public. Bogey was different. He seemed completely comfortable allowing people to see the real person behind the fame, whether they admired him or disagreed with him. I remember being around him during conversations where everyone else was trying desperately to impress someone. Bogey never played that game. He would sit quietly, listen, and wait. Then, when he finally spoke, he would say something so direct and honest that the entire room would become silent. Not because he was trying to control the conversation, not because he wanted attention. He simply did not believe in wasting words. What I admired most about him was that beneath the tough exterior was a deeply generous and caring person. The public saw the hard-boiled detective, the cynical hero, the man with the cigarette, the sharp response, and the unforgettable attitude. But those who truly knew him saw something different. They saw a man who cared deeply about the people he loved, and once you earned Humphrey Bogart's respect, you had it for life. But before Mitchum revealed the people who meant the most to him, what truly brought them together? Was it his fame and success, or was there a deeper connection that went beyond Hollywood? Keep watching to find out. The rise of Robert Mitchum. Robert Charles Derman Mitchum was born on August 6, 1917, in Bridgeport, Connecticut, into a Methodist family with Scots-Irish, Native American, and Norwegian roots. His early life was shaped by hardship, independence, and a desire to find his place in the world. By 1937, Mitchum had moved to Long Beach, California, where the first steps toward his legendary career began. His older sister, Julie, was trying to rebuild her connection with entertainment and joined the Players Guild, a local theater group. Mitchum often walked her home after rehearsals, and during those moments, he became fascinated by the world of acting and performance. What started as curiosity soon became a passion. With his mother's encouragement, he joined the Players Guild and made his stage debut in August 1937. While performing with the group, Mitchum discovered that his talents extended beyond acting. He wrote 2 children's plays and later began creating song lyrics for his sister Julie and other performers after she became a cabaret singer. In 1939, he reached another creative milestone when he wrote and composed an oratorio that was produced and directed by Orson Welles for a benefit event supporting Jewish refugees. At the end of 1939, Mitchum worked as an assistant for astrologer Carol Reiter during an Eastern Seaboard tour. During that journey, he returned to Delaware and married Dorothy Spence in 1940 before bringing her back to California. After leaving his writing work when a promised payment never arrived, Mitchum searched for a stable income to support his growing family. During World War II, he became a sheet metal worker at the Lockheed Aircraft Corporation. Although he continued acting part-time, the demanding job affected his health. The loud machinery damaged his hearing, while exhausting night shifts caused severe insomnia and temporary blindness. Doctors believed stress from the job contributed to his condition, leading Mitchum to leave Lockheed and pursue acting full-time. Through a theater connection, he gained an opportunity to meet Harry Sherman, the producer behind United Artists' Hop-Along Cassidy Western series starring William Boyd. In June 1942, Mitchum entered the film industry with a small villain role in Border Patrol, beginning a series of appearances in 7 Hop-Along Cassidy films released in 1943. That same year, he appeared in 19 films, building experience across different genres. His early roles included Follow the Band, The Human Comedy, The Dancing Masters, Corvette, K225, and Gung Ho. After seeing his performance in Columbia's Doughboys in Ireland, studio executive Harry Cohn offered him a contract, but Mitchum chose to continue creating his own path. His first major breakthrough came in 1944 with When Strangers Marry, where he played a salesman helping his former girlfriend solve a murder mystery. His performance earned positive reviews and attracted the attention of director Mervyn LeRoy, who recommended him to RKO. On May 25, 1944, Mitchum signed a 7-year contract with RKO. His first film for the studio was Girl Rush, followed by westerns such as Nevada and West of the Pecos. Nevada became an important moment because it was his first film to give him star billing, showing that Hollywood was beginning to recognize his potential. His career changed dramatically when RKO loaned him to producer Lester Cowan for The Story of G.I. Joe in 1945, directed by William A. Wellman. Mitchum played a battle-worn officer inspired by Captain Henry T. Wasco. Is the story of ordinary soldiers seen through journalist Ernie Pyle's perspective. The film became a major critical and commercial success, with General Dwight D. Eisenhower calling it the greatest war picture he had ever seen. Before its release, Mitchum served in the United States Army as a medic at Fort MacArthur, California. The movie earned 4 Academy Award nominations, including Mitchum's only Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor.
Robert Mitchum's Blue Ribbon performance, and in fact, this was the only role in his long and celebrated career where he was actually nominated for an Academy Award.
The Story of G.I. Joe transformed Robert Mitchum from a rising actor into a Hollywood star. Years later, critic Andrew Sarris praised his performance as extraordinarily haunting, recognizing the impact of the role that helped define his career. In 1946, Mitchum appeared in Till the End of Time, a drama about returning Marine veterans, before moving toward the genre that would ultimately become his trademark, film noir. Despite Mitchum's softer side, was there another part of him that the world rarely saw? And when he faced his toughest moments, did the people he loved stand by him and defend him? Stay tuned to find out. The untold side of Robert Mitchum. When Bob was arrested, the entire situation came as a complete surprise, because the police were actually searching for someone else. At the beginning, he was not even the person they were focused on. In fact, they almost gave him the opportunity to walk away and avoid becoming involved. But Bob refused to leave because he would not abandon his friends or pretend he had nothing to do with the people around him. Because of that decision, he was arrested alongside them. He understood the strange irony of the entire situation. What bothered him most was that he had been the one singled out, even though many of the people around him, including some of the officers involved in the arrest, were also familiar with use. To Bob, the situation revealed a great deal of hypocrisy, and he recognized how unusual and unfair the circumstances truly were. Howard Hughes wanted to fight the case because he believed there were deeper issues involved and because he understood the situation far better than most people did. He wanted to challenge what had happened and protect Bob's reputation. But I told him, "It is too late, Howard. It is already in the newspapers, and once something becomes public, people immediately believe it is true." I explained that trying to fight the case too aggressively could create even more attention and bring unnecessary embarrassment to many people involved. It could hurt more people, create a bigger scandal, and turn a difficult situation into something even worse. Sometimes, the damage caused by public attention could become greater than the original problem itself. From Bob's perspective, there was nothing left to do except accept what happened and face the consequences. He served around 54 days in prison, and even during that difficult time, his main concern was not himself, but the people he loved. He made a request to the authorities saying, "Please, I will pose for you. I will clean the floors. We can arrange anything you want at the jail, but I do not want my children to see this." That request revealed a different side of Robert Mitchum. The world knew him as a fearless, rebellious Hollywood figure, but behind that image was a man who deeply cared about his family and wanted to protect them from pain and embarrassment. The people at the jail understood his feelings and treated him with kindness. They respected his request and allowed the situation to pass, without making it more damaging than it already was. Eventually, the entire case collapsed. It was reviewed again, and the charges were removed from the record because it was determined that the case was not valid. Many people believed the scandal would destroy Mitchum's career forever. They thought Hollywood would never forgive him, and that his reputation would be permanently damaged. But the people who truly knew Bob never abandoned him. They understood the man behind the headlines. They loved him, supported him, and continued standing by him through one of the most difficult moments of his life. Their loyalty proved that his real friendships were stronger than any scandal. When Mitchum eventually returned to the screen, audiences welcomed him back with the same admiration they had always shown him, and perhaps with even greater respect. When he appeared in Rachel and the Stranger, viewers responded positively because they were not only seeing an actor returning to work, they were seeing a man they still admired, despite everything that had happened. Unlike many celebrities who changed themselves depending on the situation or created a different version of who they were for the public, Mitchum remained exactly the same person both on and off the screen. He was not pretending to be a tough man. He was not trying to create a mysterious personality or act more intelligent than he really was. He did not need to perform outside of his movies. What people saw was the real Robert Mitchum, honest, confident, and completely comfortable with himself. But beyond his famous tough exterior was a mind that surprised many people. Mitchum was an extremely intelligent man who read constantly. He did not simply read books and forget them afterward. He absorbed information, remembered details, and could easily recall passages and ideas from what he had studied. His ability to remember information was almost unbelievable. He had a near photographic memory that allowed him to learn material at an incredible speed. Someone could hand him several pages of a script, and after studying them briefly, he could deliver the lines with remarkable accuracy and confidence. This was the Robert Mitchum that many people never fully saw. He was not only a powerful actor with an unforgettable presence on screen. Could there be a reason why Robert Mitchum made these revelations, and why now? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for staying with us as we explored the list of loved ones by Robert Mitchum. Now we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on these revelations? Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video on your screen to explore more stories. See you there.